On any given day it will happen. Perhaps 100 times or maybe even thousands of times, but it will happen. I suggest to all of you husbands out there to beware. We all deny it, it couldn't possibly happen to me. As sure as the sun rises in the east, a faithful wife will surely be a man other than her own today. Yes, I said today. Do you doubt me? Well, you certainly would be better off if you didn't. Look around yourself, wake up and smell the coffee. Dig down deep into your own mind. If you had the chance to cheat on your wife with a beautiful young woman, wouldn't you? Think about it before you answer. Be honest with yourself. Can you really say for sure? Are you absolutely positive? Think of the thrill involved in the chase. Image the excitement of her touch, the smell of her hair as you hold her close. Conjure up the image in your mind of a young beauty slowly undressing for you the first time, revealing her innocent charms to you. Now, I'll bet at least half of you would indulge yourself. Admit it, no one else will ever know. You can do it, she's so new and intoxicating, a new face to kiss, that hard willing body, is so warm and fresh, just tempting you to partake. You're thinking about it, aren't you? Now, you've hesitated, are you strong enough to resist? Do you love your spouse enough to ignore that shapely luscious ass? Now ask yourself this, how much does your wife love you? Does your slightly overhanging beer gut attract her? How about your receding hairline, does it make her swoon? Think of those nights you rolled off her in bed and went to sleep, leaving her without satisfaction. Are you Don Juan, or Don Knotts? Are women really so different from you? If you would consider cheating, why wouldn't she? This is the hard question. Can you tell yourself with absolute certainty that she wouldn't stray? Well, can you? So, I thought I was one of the few that loved my wife enough. I had thought she would always be true. I had been tempted many times by younger, sexier women. I loved my wife enough to resist the forbidden fruit. I had made a promise to love, honor, and keep her, forsaking all others. This promise was from my heart. This vow I would take with me to my grave. Trina apparently did not see our marriage vows the same way I did. She loved me, I was sure of that, wasn't I? The fact she was seeing someone else came to me quite by accident and caused me to doubt everything in my little, naive world. God damn it. She was cheating on me. I love Trina and will give her anything but this. I am Danny, everyone calls me Dan. Trina is my wife of 12 years. The background is unremarkable, we dated, and we married. I work as a security system salesman, and Trina is a doctor with a private family practice. We own a nice home and lead a good life. At least we did until that Friday. My meeting Friday afternoon with Mike, the security head of a large downtown mall, was wrapping up. We were signing the final contract on a video surveillance system upgrade. The system covered the indoor parking garage. We were talking about how well the cameras worked when he said, "You gotta see this shot we have of the lower level. It's from Wednesday afternoon." He did a search on the workstation and pulled up clip on the monitor. Man, this new system is amazing. We had no idea of the shit we were missing. On the screen you could see a car with two people inside. They were pretty obviously connecting on a very passionate level. The shot was of the passenger side of the car. A very enthusiastic woman was facing a dark-haired man in the passenger seat. Now, check this out. This feature is so cool. Mike said. The camera panned a little and zoomed into a perfect shot of the woman's face. She was in the throes of passion with her eyes closed, biting her bottom lip. My heart stopped beating. I was dead. You guessed it, there was Trina with another man. Right there in the mall parking lot in his car. Hey Mike, I have to get back to the office before it closes. Do you think you could email me this file? I want to show it to the guys. Hey man, no problem. I'll add a couple of other good ones I have too. Thanks Mike, I'll see you later. The marriage I'd had was now over. That's the only thing in my life I was sure of. There are 1,000,001 different questions you can ask yourself at a time like this, but the answer is the same. I don't know why, I don't know who, I don't know how long, and I just don't know. The fact is, does it really matter? I had lived up to my side of the bargain and Trina didn't. I found myself at home a little earlier than I usually am. I ordered a pizza and checked the mail. My happy life was changing in front of my eyes. I had resigned myself, my beautiful fairy tale marriage was over, at least as I had known it. But I would live. People all over the world experience tragedy every day and they trudge on. The pizza arrived before Trina did and I was half-heartedly eating when she arrived. Hi honey, how was your day? Ah, you ordered pizza. I thought maybe we could go out tonight. I don't feel like it. I said, continuing to chew the tasteless mass. Is something wrong? Yep. Do you want to talk about it? Nope. I left the kitchen and went to my den and closed the door. A few minutes later she knocked. Please Danny, tell me what's wrong. We can work it out, honey. I don't think so. Have I done something wrong to make you mad? You probably don't think so. What is that supposed to mean? Nothing, just leave me alone. Let her figure it out, she's intelligent, she's a doctor for Christ's sakes. I'm not going to argue about this now. I really don't have the energy or the inclination to fight with her. Apparently Trina needs something I can't give her and I'm not going to open that can of worms. I slept in my den fitfully that night. Some of you husbands would want the confrontation. Some would plan an elaborate revenge, I did neither. I didn't even care who the guy was that Trina had f. I went to take a shower and left the house to mow the yard. I don't like yard work, but I stayed at it most of the day. Trina came out and asked me if I would like some lunch, I just shook my head. The hard work in the sun had been good for me that day, and it gave me time to think. I reviewed our life together, was there something I had done wrong? In my mind at least, I could see no reason for her to cheat. From my point of view I had met all of her needs, whether emotional, financial, or sexual. I could only conclude that this was all Trina's problem. She could face it on her own. I was not going to participate at all. She could figure out what went wrong on her own. The marriage was hers to fix, or hers to flush. I wasn't going to run away, and I wasn't going to fight with her. I was in the shower after my hard day in the sun, when I felt her hands on my back. She reached around me. Are you going to tell me what's eating you now? No. She got no reaction from me at all. I'm sure this pissed her off. She never has had any problem arousing me. The next day I cleared the clutter from the spare bedroom and moved in. I went to work and I came home to my new room, and that was my routine. Trina continued to ask me to talk to her, but I refused. I still loved my wife, you can't just turn that off. But each day this went on I became a little more detached from life. I was hurt by her actions. Trina could feel it too, she had the key to the door to free us. But I guess her conscience wouldn't let her admit it. A few weeks we lived like prisoners in our own house. Just routine and silence, no love as before. On a bright sunny Saturday, she came to me and asked, Dan, can we set this aside for a moment and talk? Why? Haven't you figured it out yet? Dan, I don't know why you're mad at me, but I can't take it any longer. I must have done something, and you won't tell me what it is. Please help me. Trina, what you did was done without consideration for me and without my help. This is your problem, not mine. I said calmly. A light bulb must have flashed in her head at that moment. The color instantly drained from her beautiful face. She burst into tears and ran to her bedroom. Well, the cat's out of the bag now. I'm sure she now knows that I found out about her secret. She'd spent the entire day in our bedroom crying. I didn't see her once all day. I would make no attempt to comfort Trina, and after all, I wasn't the cause of her pain and grief. The fact that she now knew why I was acting different toward her had not changed a thing. I felt no responsibility for the rift between us, she had ruined our marriage, and she had broken her wedding vows. Some of you will say at this point, that it takes two to tango. You must have done something to cause your wife's infidelity. Well, you may be right, and you are certainly entitled to your own opinion. But I have absolutely no reason to believe that. Trina and I had always discussed our relationship honestly, and she knows of all of my views of commitment and trust. Trina looked like shit the next morning. I really can't remember seeing her look this bad. But truthfully, I didn't care. I hope she was feeling as bad as she looked. She should have to experience some of the pain I had been through. Trina tentatively came to where I was sitting. Dan, will you talk to me now? She asked in a soft voice. Sure Trina, how are you this morning, how are your mom and dad, I haven't heard from them for a while. What do you think about Italian for dinner tonight? Please Dan, don't do this. Please tell me what you're going to do. Are we through? Can you forgive me? I'm not going to do anything, Trina. I don't understand. Tell me what to do, tell me what you want. No Trina, that's not how it works. You F up our marriage, pardon the pun, now you can decide what to do with it. You didn't consider me when you was with that asshole, you made that choice on your own. Now you have to decide what to do about your marriage on your own. I said coldly. Don't you mean our marriage? No Trina, it stopped being ours when you made the decision to F another man. We had a contract, you and I, a contract to remain faithful to one another. You didn't consult me about it or seek to renegotiate the terms of that contract. I stuck to the language of the agreement and you didn't. This makes it your decision and yours alone. I replied with no emotion. How can you be so cold? Do you hate me that much? She said. Trina was crying out right now with her head down and almost in a fetal position. No Trina, I promise to love and honor you, till death do us part. I will love you and remain faithful, together or apart. I will honor my vows to you even if we divorce. Ooh God no, Dan. Well, now the reality was sinking in. She was finally seeing the consequences of her actions. Trina spent the rest day alone, deep in thought. Over the last few weeks since I had discovered Trina's affair, my emotions had dulled to the point that I barely cared if I lived or died. I was running on cruise control. I had eaten only because it was dinner time. I worked because that's what I did from 9 to 5 each day. I slept, not well I might add, because it was dark outside. I did nothing from want or need, I did things only from habit. I wondered where I would be in a week or month from now. I was in Trina's hands now. Trina came to my bed that evening. She sat lightly on the edge and asked softly, "Dan, are you awake? What do you want, Trina?" "I'm trying to sleep. I want to tell you how sorry I am." "Yeah, well, I'm sorry too. Now everything is all better, right? Just let me get some sleep, unless you have some miraculous way of erasing the memory of you screwing away a happy 12-year marriage. Please, Dan, let me explain." "Stop, Trina, I have only one question for you. Is there some reason this is my fault? What I'm trying to say is, did I not love you the way you wanted? Did I not pay enough attention to you? Was I a bad lover? God no, Dan, you're all I ever imagined or wanted. I did nothing to drive you to another man's arms? No, Dan, it wasn't your fault." "Then Trina, I don't need or want an explanation. The only thing I need to know is what you plan to do next. Are you leaving me?" "No then, no. I never want to leave you. You're my whole life, I'll do whatever it takes to keep us together forever." "Then fix it, Trina, make it better. Make the hurt go away." "I wish I could, with all my heart. I just don't know how." If you have read this far, you probably think I don't care about what Trina does behind my back. I know I said I don't care how she handles this problem. But rest assured I will not accept lies, or her cheating on me. If Trina decides to fix our broken marriage, it will have to be to my satisfaction. I would rather live without Trina than live without trust. My gut feeling was Trina wanted to save our marriage. Her dilemma would be to convince me that her affair was over. She will not have an easy time of this. I will be not play the fool. My trust in her had dissolved to the point that if she told me the sky was blue, I would go look. Trina appeared resolved to mend what was now broken. She told me time after time how sorry she was. I asked myself, was she sorry for getting caught or for the act itself? Her next response disturbed me. Not by doing it, but that it had never occurred to me. She tested herself for sexually transmitted disease. Trina showed me the report. Before I read it, I looked at her. "Should I be tested?" I asked. She didn't respond right away. She wasn't as embarrassed as I thought she might be. Trina was trying to form her best response. "It isn't really necessary, but I will do the tests if you like." "Why won't it be necessary, as you say? All my tests were negative, and we only did it the one time. You and I haven't made love since then." I had received the answer to a question I didn't ask. The look in her eyes told me she was telling the truth. This hadn't been an ongoing affair. It was a one-time lapse, but a lapse nonetheless. I wasn't sure if I could ever forgive Trina, but I knew in my heart that I would give her the chance to regain my love and trust. We both were unsure of where we were heading, but I'll give Trina credit, she was trying. Our home life remained civil and cold. We didn't seem to make any progress for the next week. One evening the phone rang and Trina took the call. She was agitated as she spoke. When the call ended, she came to me in tears. "Dan, please, I know I'm not your favorite person right now, but I need a favor from you." "What is it, Trina? What's wrong?" "It was Mom. She told me Granddad is in the hospital." "What do you need me to do?" "I know it's asking a lot right now, but will you go with me to see him? Mom said he may only have a few days left. I want you with me when I see him for the last time." "Of course I'll go. You shouldn't even have to ask." Trina made the arrangements and we flew out the next day. I really did like Bill, Trina's grandpa. He was one of the good guys. Bill had made a fortune in construction in the 70s and 80s. You would have never guessed it though, the way he acted. He was as down-to-earth as they come. We arrived at Trina's parents late in the evening. They filled us in on Bill's condition and it was decided we would see him in the morning. This would be the first time Trina and I would sleep in the same room in weeks. We had decided, considering the circumstances, not to tell her parents of our problems at this time. It was rather awkward getting ready for bed that night. We didn't speak, each going about our nightly routine. We both slipped into bed a little after 11 o'clock. I'm sure it had been an hour before Trina asked if I was awake. "Yeah, I can't sleep either. Dan, I've missed you so much. I hardly sleep anymore without you there." "I know, it's hard not having one you love near you. Does that mean you still love me, Dan?" "You know I do. I just can't forget what you did. Do you think there is a chance we can make it through this?" "I hope so, Trina, but you know it's up to you. You keep telling me that, Dan. But it doesn't seem fair, you're not helping. Was it fair to me when you slept with another man? You didn't need my help then, did you?" "I know you're right, but I'm scared. I'm scared I won't be able to do it. I just don't know how to make it right. Trina, please, just try to get some sleep now. The important thing now is Bill." "Okay, but you're wrong." "Wrong about what?" The most important thing to me is you. Do you think you could do me one more favor? What is it? Could you hold me tonight? I lifted my arm and Trina melted to me. She held on until we woke the next morning. We went to the hospital at 8 that morning. On the way, Trina asked her mother if we could see Bill alone for a while. She seemed confused, but agreed. On our arrival, Bill was awake. Trina and I entered his room alone. "All right, what the hell is going on?" were the first words out of Bill's mouth. "Nothing, we just wanted to see you," Trina said. "Don't try to be shit an old bullshitter, Trina. I may be dying but I'm not blind." I was shocked. She told him the whole sad tale. Trina didn't hold back much. In 15 minutes Bill knew as much as I did. "Well, that's some story, you too. So, what happens next? Can you forgive her, Dan? Or are you going to toss her?" "Well, Bill, we're trying." "Trina honey, would you go get me some water or go to the can? Oh hell, just go somewhere. I need to talk to your husband alone for a few minutes." "Okay, let's get to this. I don't have the time left to hold your hand through this deal. I need to know, do you love her?" "Yes sir, I do." "Well then, what's the hold up? Tell her you love her. Forgive the silly bee and get on with your lives." "It's not that simple." "Yes it is. Everybody tries to make shit complicated these days. The truth is you don't trust her. She had some strange you-know-what and it pissed you off. Now you think she'll do it again. Has she ever lied to you?" "I doubt it, she never could do it to me." "Just get your head out of your ass and ask her straight up. Will she do it again?" "Trust me, she won't lie to you. She doesn't have it in her." "I wish it was that easy. Son, in my day we did business with a handshake. We trusted the word of another man. You still can't trust her word, get it in writing. Talk to your lawyer if you have to. Dan, you two are good for each other, don't do anything stupid. Now could you send Trina in so I can straighten her out?" I shook Bill's hand and wished him well. I found Trina and she went to Bill's room. I sat alone in the waiting room. I had a lot to consider. Bill was being Bill, he told what he thought. Maybe it was that simple. I was questioning my resolve. Could I bring myself to just forgive and forget? Bill passed away that night. I knew he would be missed. I called my boss and let him know it would be a few more days until I could be back. We were staying for the funeral. In bed those nights with Trina, I felt as close to her as I ever had. She needed me and I was there for her. Bill's passing was taking its toll on her. I went home on Sunday. Trina stayed to help her mother. For the first time I stayed alone in my house. Not literally, Trina had taken trip without me, but I always knew she would return. I was alone now. Would this be what my life was to become? I feared life without my wife. I also knew, without trust our marriage wouldn't survive. I worked long hours avoiding our lonely home. I had just pulled into my driveway after a long day. My neighbor George from across the street waved and walked over to me. George is a tall blonde surfer type. He is a few years older than me and wears his hair shaggy and long. You've probably met him, or at least one of his twin surfer-type brothers. You know the type. He's too old to fit in with the surfers and too strange to fit in the neighborhood. "Hey Dan, how's it going?" "Hey George, going fine." Trina told Lisa you guys were kind of on the outs. You guys gonna be okay?" "Yeah, well, we're working it out. I just wanted to say I felt bad and all that, you know." "Yeah George, well, thanks for the concern. I think we'll be alright." Going into the house, I wondered what the hell that was about. George wasn't usually one of the gossip types. Trina didn't talk to George and his wife Melissa unless she had to. I wrote it off to neighborhood bullshit. I needed to eat, so I let it slide. Being alone for a few days had brought me to the conclusion I really had to decide my fate. I couldn't go on this way indefinitely. I needed to either forgive her or forget her. Bill had certainly given me much to consider. Trina called later that evening. She had called to let me know she'd be home Friday. Thursday was slow in the office. My work was up to date from all the extra hours I put in. About 4 o'clock I was shutting down for the day. Rich, one of the other salesmen, came to my office and asked if I wanted to grab a beer after work. With no reason to go home, I agreed. At the corner pub, we sat and talked about the normal stuff. Golf, work and the new car Rich was looking to buy. The chit-chat had died down so Rich jumped in with both feet. "Dan, we've known each other for a long time now. There is something bothering you. It might help to get it off your chest." "I don't really want to talk about it, Rich. The only thing you won't talk about with me is Trina. Is that why you're acting like somebody peed in your Cheerios?" "Yeah, I guess I don't hide it very well." "What did she do?" "Let's just say I can't trust her anymore, okay? Look Dan, if you don't trust her, you don't trust her. Cut her loose. You can't live your life looking over your shoulder. Believe me, I've been there, done that." I finished my beer and told Rich I'd see him tomorrow. God damn it. This wasn't getting any easier. First Bill, now Rich, What about Trina? What's her story? How is she going to convince me to keep her? I didn't sleep worth a shit that night. I kept dreaming of Trina with her lover. The look on her face, the look I hadn't seen for so long, the look of passion. I picked up Trina at the airport in the afternoon. She seemed pleased to see me and hugged me. The tension was still there tough. We made small talk about her folks and the flight, as we drove home. I wanted so much to ask Trina if she had come to any conclusion regarding our problem. She was exhausted from the trip and I let it go for the time being. Tomorrow would be soon enough. Trina was up early and had breakfast ready as I came downstairs. We ate slowly. Trina seemed somewhat different, she was calmer and relaxed. I wondered where we heading, had she given up? Would she tell me it was over? I had to ask. Trina, have you worked it out yet? I think so, Dan, but could we do this tonight after dinner? I have a lot to do today. So, I made myself scarce for the day. I went for a haircut and washed my car. I did all the little things I could think of. I think time moved into a new dimension, minutes seemed like hours. That evening was like a first date, you're really not sure what to expect, but hoping for a lot. Trina was beautiful, she'd had her hair and nails done that day, she was dressed to kill. I prayed it wasn't me that was about to die. Trina had made my favorite dinner. Something big was afoot. After dinner we retired to the living room to talk. Dan, I want you to know how sorry I truly am. I know I have hurt you terribly. You don't want explanation, so I won't go into that now. She paused, and then continued. What you have made me realize is I can't go on without you. I need you, and only you in my life. By making me responsible for my own actions I had to finally grow up. When we went to see Granddad in the hospital, he gave me some advice. And what was it? We talked about the same things he and you had discussed. About truth and trust. I can see now why I had to do this on my own. This is my responsibility and entirely my fault. She stopped and took a breath. I could see this was hard for her. Well, hell, it was supposed to be. If it were easy she wouldn't learn from it. Trina went on. Dan, when you left after the funeral. I know this is going to sound all mixed up, so please stay with me. Anyway, we had gone to Bill's attorney to settle the estate. I'll just say it. Bill left us a lot of money. What are you saying, Trina? Bill left us a little over $9 million. That's great, Trina, but how does this solve our problems? Gee, Dan, I thought you'd be more excited. Aren't you happy? Yeah, Trina, I'm real happy for you. Dan, when you talked to Bill, did he tell you to see a lawyer if you couldn't trust me? Yes, he said to get it in writing. If I couldn't take your word that you would be true to me, I should get it in writing. She handed me some papers. Well, that's what I did, Dan. What are you talking about? I met with Bill's attorney after the will was read. I arranged it so if you caught me lying and we split up you get all the money. What? Why would you do that? To prove to you that you can trust me. It will be sort of a penalty if I do anything to split us up. It's the only way I could think of to get back together with you. Trina. I don't know quite what to say. Don't say anything, just forgive me please. I knew that I would be miserable without her, and she tried, she really had tried. This crazy document was not what I expected. But at least in spirit she had done what I had asked. I had asked her to fix our broken marriage. I suppose time will tell if she had done it. She came to me with expectant eyes. How could I refuse her? I told her we would give it a go. We hugged and she kissed me. Trina took me by the hand and led me to our bed. I could see this is what she had planned all along. As I undressed her, I saw the new lingerie she wore. I'll bet she had bought it today, knowing we would make love tonight. It had been so long for us both. We hadn't had it for months. I looked upon her form as if it was the first time. I caressed her smooth skin, she was beautiful. Trina and I made up for all those lost weeks that night. At breakfast the next morning we held hands and talked. Trina was glowing and giddy. She talked to me like a best friend or lover she hadn't seen in years. I could only listen, I could get a word in edgeways. Dan, I've missed you so, I'm so happy to have you back. I still can't tell you how sorry I am. Please believe me that it was only the one time with George. After my nurse caught us in my office that day. She quit after she saw me with George, I just knew she was going to tell you all about it. AF, George. I thought I had a problem before, now it just multiplied 9 million times. I guess Trina never could just shut the F up while she was ahead. Yesterday, I was a 35-year-old man viewing the world through rose-colored glasses. I believed in love and commitment, I had made vows to stay true and I intended to keep them. I lived in a dream world where there were no lies or secrets between lovers. Trust was absolute, and marriage was for life. Well, who am I today? I'm not that guy anymore, that's for goddamn sure. My heart was ripped from my chest and replaced with a scar-covered crusty organ that only serves to pump ice water through my veins. The man that Dan was yesterday was killed as surely as if he'd been shot between the eyes with a .45 caliber slug. My wife Trina had pulled that trigger. She had put an end to all that I held sacred. For months she had the chance to cure me of the disease she had inflicted on me. Hell, she's a doctor, she could have pulled me through somehow. But she chose to kill me with her cheating and her lies. She almost had me in recovery at one point, but another of her lies caused the final relapse and finally the death of poor Dan. I'm sure you all know my story, seems like I'm the only one that didn't. Let me sum it up for you. My lovely wife Dr. Trina was caught by yours truly in very compromising situation. I chose not to tell the bee what I knew. My plan was simple, let her figure it out. She had caused the rift in our marriage, I was going to let her fix it. Well, as time went by she was not even close to succeeding in healing our broken nuptials. After months she settled on a plan that involved her inheritance from her grandfather that had recently passed. I began to see no clear resolution to our plight and in a moment of weakness forgave her dalliance. True to form, my ever-talkative wife tried to explain her lapse and confessed to a different affair. Yes, it would seem that there had been more than one. I now knew about at least 2 of her affairs, but she is unaware of that. I'm not the type of man that is driven by greed, or maybe I should say wasn't that type. Actually, even now the wealth is not the true issue. The fact that Trina placed it on the line to assure me she would remain faithful to me is the crux. I have given so much to her to this point, I intend to give no more. She has taken all the love I had and left me empty. As the days pass since finding out about my loving wife's affairs, I have become very despondent. Life holds no value anymore, and I only remain with her out of habit. I was on a downhill slide, and Trina noticed. "Honey, what the matter, aren't you feeling well?" she asked, feeling my temperature with her hand to my cheek. "I'm fine Trina, it's this whole F-up mess of a marriage that's sick." "Dan, honey? I thought we were okay. What's wrong baby? I thought well, you said you'd forgiven me. Did you change your mind?" "Yeah Trina, a lot of things have changed. I thought once that you loved me, but I can see now I was wrong, dead wrong. But I do love you. Save it Trina, it won't work anymore. You played me for a fool, what is it that you get out of treating me this way? Is it some sick game you play? Do you enjoy hurting me? Why Trina, you have what you want, money, career, why not just leave me if you don't love me?" "So you know about the others, I was wondering how long it would take you to find out," she replied coldly. "Yeah Trina, you told me, but that doesn't tell me why. Be truthful for once, why'd you do it, why not just leave me? Why was it important for you to toy with my affections?" Trina got up and walked a few steps before turning. "You're such a moron Dan." She turned back and left the room. As I have said before, Trina was smart, probably too smart. There was something more to all of this than I could grasp at the moment. I needed to find a diversion to get my mind off Trina and what she had done to me, if only for a few hours. I got my jacket and was headed for the door when Trina ambushed me. She really turned up the heat. Trina threw herself at me and buried her face against my neck, her lips kissing as she spoke. "Look Dan, I'm sorry about what I said before, you know I didn't mean it. It was just in the heat of the moment, please forgive me, it won't happen again. Can't we forget all of this and get back to the way things used to be?" "How are you going to do that Trina? Tell me how in the hell are you going to do that? You can't make what happened go away, what's done is done. You took something precious to me and all over it, you took that from me Trina, and stained it. No Trina, there is no way we will ever be the same, not now, not ever." I walked away and out the door. I stood on my front porch and stared out at the world. Where was I going and how was I going to get there from here? I decided to walk instead of drive. I could run over somebody and not even know it in the dark mood I was in. "Oh swell, George, what the F does he want now?" I thought, as he angled across the street towards me. I kept my eyes focused forward, but it was inevitable that we would collide. I knew that if he got close enough, I would rearrange his looks. I held up my hand to wave him off, but he continued toward me. "George, I'll give you one chance to walk away," I said, but he continued. "One more step and I swear to God I will kick your ass," I warned again. "Look man, there's no need to get all hostile. I just want." I threw a haymaker from deep down in the well. It lifted Georgie boy clean off his feet and sent him flying to the pavement. My fist hurt like a bee, but the pain was nothing compared to the satisfaction I felt. "What the F did you do that for?" he moaned. "George, are you a retard or what?" I spat. "You F my wife and you think I won't be mad? Hey, she said you were okay with it. She was the one that put the moves on me man." That's all he could get out before I kicked him square in the balls. He doubled over cradling his smashed, and tried to catch his breath. "Tell me would you be okay with it if I F Lissa?" "How about it dude, would it be okay with you?" I said in my best surfer slang. "Hey man, just leave Lissa out of this." "You F, she doesn't know does she?" "Well pal, she will, I'm going to tell her all the details and let's see if she is okay with it too." I started to walk away when I heard George mutter, "God damn, if you weren't shooting blanks maybe she wouldn't have to F around on you." I walked back and picked him up by his long straggly hair. George went to his knees and was puking his guts out as I walked down the street. I laughed a little at the thought of Melissa getting custody of George's surfboards. Melissa was going to blow a gasket when I told. "Hey, wait just a damn minute, what the F did George just say about me shooting blanks? What the hell was that supposed to mean?" There was no way, no goddamned way. The next afternoon I was sitting in my urologist's office waiting to do a test. It didn't mean anything in terms of Trina and me anymore, but I wanted to know what the hell George was going on about. We had decided, Trina and I, to put off having children until her career was solidly established. That would mean late-life children, but we were okay with that. The nurse called me to come back to the exam room. I recognized her as a nurse that had once worked for Trina. We went through the usual routine: height, weight, blood pressure and temperature. Donna, the nurse, gave me one of those paper gowns and told me the doctor would be in soon. When the doc finally got around to me, I'd been standing there for half an hour or more. The doc slid his little stool back after his exam and asked Donna to take care of the sample. Donna turned and went to a cabinet, instead of crouching like a lady. As she leaned into the cabinet I got a great deliberate view of her. She turned back, handing me a magazine. "I think this one will produce the desired effect," she smirked. After she left, I was thinking that I should have gone to another doctor where no one knew me. I may not have been quite so embarrassed. I really was in no mood for this. The thoughts of Trina with other men were not helping. I had been in the exam room for a long time when the door opened slightly. "Dan, are you okay? Are we having a little problem?" Donna asked. "Yeah, sort of," I replied sheepishly. Donna entered the room and closed the door, locking it behind her. "Donna," I said with astonishment, "I don't think, what if somebody were to, this isn't right." I was still babbling when she pulled her top off. With her hands now stroking I was beyond protesting now. I thought I would feel shame or guilt, but I didn't. I felt no remorse at all. I know what I did was wrong, but right then I didn't give a s. Still half undressed, Donna came up and sat next to me on the exam table. She reached for my hand, and we sat quietly for a moment. I spoke first. "That was pretty amazing. I hope that isn't part of your job description. What if somebody would have walked in? They're all gone, we're the only two left in the building. So you were just trying to get rid of me, huh?" I joked. "Yes and no, I was kind of hoping that. Donna, I would really like nothing more, but I have some issues to work through first." "Well then let's get the hell out this place and you can buy me a drink. I think I deserve at least one beer and I'm a good listener." "If you twist my arm," I quipped. She reached under the gown. "Is that close enough?" she giggled. It turned out that Donna was a hell of a listener, and she sat patiently as I related my tale of adultery and deceit. One beer turned into two, and I insisted she join me for dinner. I felt the weight of the world lift from my shoulders. It turned out that I did need to unload. The hours passed too quickly, and I soon found myself on Donna's doorstep wishing for more time. I kissed her tenderly and I felt her respond, but like in a game of chicken, I flinched first. I thanked Donna for a wonderful evening and promised to call. There was no doubt in my mind that I would someday meet that promise. Trina was waiting for me when I arrived home. As I walked toward my study, she put on the full court press. "Dan, honey, could we sit down and talk for a while?" Her voice was syrupy sweet. "Trina, what's the point? Haven't we beat this to death already? Until you're ready to give me the real reason that you found it necessary to go outside our marriage for selfish enjoyment, I have nothing left to say to you." "But Danny," she whined. I don't," she stuttered, and then the tears came. I went into the kitchen and tore off a length of paper towel and tossed it to her on my way back by. I felt her tears were as real as my pity for her. No need to soil one of my handkerchiefs on the bullshit she was spewing. I walked on by to my den. She called out, "I love you, Danny," with emphasis at the end so I could hear her over the slamming door. Try as I might, sleep would not come. Many things twirled and twisted through my head. What did I ever do to deserve all of this? It could be that Trina grew tired of me, but that made no sense to me. She was very clear with her last words to me, "I love you, Danny." I'm glad she didn't hate me. If she could do this to me when she loved me, imagine the pain she could inflict if she hated me. What about what George had said to me about shooting blanks? Why the secrecy and rush to have a baby now? If she was doing this just to conceive, this is all ludicrous. Surely she would talk to me about it, and how would George know? I must watch too much TV. How would plain old Dan get involved in a big conspiracy? That notion was crazy. She was cheating on me, pure and simple. That had to be the answer. The question still remains though, why? All I got from my night's confusion were bloodshot eyes. I still had no clear vision of what was going on and no real direction where my life was headed. I thought about just walking away, leave all this crap behind and see when life would take me, but that wasn't me. I had to know what went wrong, and goddamn it, that's what my impetus became. The night wasn't a total loss, however. I realized one thing at least: some people couldn't shut up. If you let them talk enough, they will tell you what you want, regardless. A weakness, I suppose, a weakness I would try to exploit given half a chance. I wish Bill was still around. While I thought his last piece of advice was pure shit, he did have a lot of common sense. Common sense was sure something that I hadn't seen lurking around much lately, myself included. I remembered yesterday in the doctor's office, while I enjoyed myself, that wasn't the smartest thing to do. I should have, stopped Donna, but I didn't. I made my regular rounds that day on cruise control. The last call of the day would be with my old buddy Mike. You remember him, it's where this whole nightmare started. "Hey Dan, how you doing?" Mike greeted me. "Not too shabby, I just dropped by to see if you're ready to get rid of all that junk equipment and finally buy some real gear." "You wish, and if I remember right, you're the one that sold me all of that junk." "Okay, you got me there. Say Mike, are you still perving on your customers? That last DVD was pretty hot, any more you want to share?" I probed. His ears perked up. "Yeah, I got a few more." "Look Mike, I'll be straight with you, we've known each other quite a while. Remember that hot one you showed me last time I was here?" "Yeah, who could forget her?" "Yeah, can't forget that one, that's for sure." "Mike, I don't know exactly how to say it, but that was my wife on that vid and I was wondering if you had any more recent stuff on her." "You're kidding me, man, I'm sorry buddy, Hey, it's not your fault. I'm just looking for a little more footage to confront her. You know I'll do anything I can to help, and it looks like she's becoming a regular." I left a new very high-end camera with Mike. He promised to let me know if he caught Trina in the act. I actually hoped that it had been the only time. I wanted to be wrong, I really did. When I got home, I found the note Trina had left me. The thought that she had run out on me flashed through my head before I got a chance to read it. The note said she was going home to see her parents for a few days. She wanted to give me some space. Today was Tuesday, and she would be home Sunday. I stayed in the office the next day to get caught up with some reports. It was busy work and didn't require a lot of concentration on my part. I got a couple of calls that day, the first from my urologist asking me to come by for my test results. The other turned out to be more interesting. It was from Trina's grandmother. After the small talk she went right to the reason she'd called. "Daniel, what is going on between you two? Don't bother to deny it, I know something is up." "Bess, you cut right to the chase, don't you? Look, if you want to know, you'll have to ask Trina. Don't you think I haven't, but Daniel, she's lying to me. If I were to believe her, everything is just fine between you two, but I know better. I'm sorry Bess, but things are complicated, you'll have to ask Trina. I can't say anything more. Young man, with Bill gone, I'm the head of this family. I didn't ask for this, but it's my responsibility. There's a lot at stake here, and I have to make certain that the terms of Bill's will are carried out to the letter. There is a lot of money on the line. Bess, that $9 million, I mean, it's not the important thing here. Christ, if all this means to her is money, then she can keep it. Surely you're joking, $9 million is just a drop in the well. The terms of the trust fund are very specific. You are part of this family now and you must uphold your end." I was more confused than ever now. Trust fund? What trust fund? I held Bess at bay. I needed to figure out what the hell she was talking about before I stuck my foot in my mouth like everyone else. I had to get a hold of a copy of Bill's last will and testament. I left work a little after 4, I stopped in to get the test results. The vote was in and the results say, my little swimmers were nearly non-existent. The doctor went on to add that my last test results were about the same. Did you catch that? Last test? What last test? Something tasted foul about that to me. I didn't take time to grieve for the little guys, I doubted I'd ever need them anyway. Why would Trina have me tested? I was supposed to be finding answers, but the questions were coming faster. I chatted with Donna before I left the office. I reminded her that I would indeed call soon. I had the house to myself, so I opened a can of soup and burned a couple of grilled cheese sandwiches for dinner. After a couple of bites, I decided to eat beer instead. With the house empty, I searched all of the obvious places for Bill's will, and then got a little more systematic after uncovering nothing. Room by room I looked, room by room I came up empty-handed. The one and only thing I found was the key to our safety deposit box. Now I had to remember which bank fit the key. At lunch the next day, I found myself in the lobby of the bank. If I opened the box and got another handful of questions, they would be hauling me to the loony bin. Well, surprise, surprise, the will was there along with a few other interesting documents. The will was as big as a Bible. I would need some expert help to wade through this. I was lucky enough to find a law practice that handled both probate law and divorces as well. I wanted to be prepaid because I could see no way to salvage our once perfect marriage. I discussed the facts that I knew, and answered all the questions that I could. That night, after another satisfying meal of Budweiser followed by a lovely Miller Lite, I sat back in my easy chair and started to read Trina's old journals that I'd found in the safety deposit box. After perusing a few pages of inane ramblings, I came to the page that would define Trina and my relationship as a scam. It was all here in black and white, and I could hardly wait to hand this to my lawyer. I found what I suspected he would come across after going through the will. Saturday was a sad day for me as I packed all of the things I'd accumulated over the last 12 years. I left everything that would remind me of Trina. That part of my life was over. It was nothing but a congregation of lies and deceit. I spent 12 years pouring everything I had into a marriage that was formed by a demon driven by greed and the unforgiving lust for money. Trina had known all along about the trust fund her grandmother spoke of the other day. The sum was unclear and depended on the accumulated amount at the time of Bill's death, but it was sure to run into the hundreds of millions. The $9 million was nothing more than a stipend, spending money, until the trust was fulfilled. Trina would inherit the lot when the conditions were satisfied. The will would spell out the conditions more clearly, but the crux was that Bill, although he loved Trina, he didn't trust her either. He made sure that she would make something of herself before she got the prize in the bottom of the crackerjack box. A long and happy marriage, a career, and a child were the terms. Her journal revealed the dark side of my lovely wife. She intended to collect the money and I would be history. The plan started even before we met, and by the looks of things lately, she was planning to follow her devious scheme to the end. As I expected, Sunday afternoon, the torrent of phone calls began. I turned off my cell phone. There was nothing I wanted to hear. I hadn't left a note. I would have the day to myself to get my crying over with. I did cry, it hurt. I had sensed the end coming for a while, but I wasn't nearly as prepared as I thought I would be. A lot of questions were answered. Trina's overwhelming need to get pregnant explained the affairs. Obviously, when she couldn't become pregnant by me, she had taken on a team of lovers. Why was I the lucky sod? I was just at the right place at the right time. I happened along and Trina needed a husband. She also had to remain wed for the will to be satisfied. Now I could see why that she insisted she loved me and tried to remain together. Money. All this for money. I considered calling in sick the next day, but I'd had enough of the self-pity routine. I set up an appointment with my attorney and would be at his office after lunch. I wasted most of the morning half expecting to see Trina, but it wasn't her that showed up. Trina's father Frank was elected to make first contact. Frank reminded me of a sheet of plywood, thin, stiff and made of God knows what. I was in no mood to put up with any shit today, so I put my feet up on my desk and made sure he knew that he wasn't welcome to sit. "What brings you by today, Frank? Are you looking to improve the security around your house, or is this a social call?" "Dan, I think we both know why I'm here. Trina would like to meet with you before you do anything foolish." "Too late, Frank. I've already done something foolish, about 12 years ago." "Dan, you are way out of your element here. It would be in your best interest to cooperate." "Can I be frank, Frank?" "No, I guess you already beat me to it." "Trina was right, you are a moron." "That's the second time in a little over a week that someone has called me that. I think you better go while you can still walk." "You tell Trina that I will tell her when I want to talk. We'll talk when I say so. This isn't her show anymore." Frank stomped off in a huff. I think he got the message, but I'll bet that Trina doesn't. I arrived at my lawyer's office at 1 o'clock with Trina's journal under my arm. As this was turning into quite a monster, there were 3 attorneys present. The probate guy started by explaining the terms of the trust. Trina was to be married by her 24th birthday, and it had to last at least 1 day past her 36th, some 18 months from now. There was to be 1 child born during the marriage. No specifics were given as to the father. The last item was for an established career, with income to be sufficient to support the family. My divorce attorney was busily reading Trina's journal while we discussed the will. The other thing of some importance was the amount of the trust, plus or minus, depending on daily interest rates, $450 million. Bill, the old fart had done pretty well for an old farm boy, don't you think? A lot of ideas and options were discussed that day. It was well after 7 that evening when I walked out the door shaking my head. Trina was persistent over the next couple of months. She begged and pleaded for me to see the big picture. I saw a lot more than she realized. She had no idea what her greed was doing to her, but she soon would. Her day of reckoning was on the horizon, if the moron had his way. I hadn't been sitting on my dead ass for the entire time, just most of it. My buddy Mike had sent me some very incriminating videos of Trina to use in the civil case against her. I was going to press the issue of the money Trina had offered up to assure me she would never lie or cheat again. The videos would clearly substantiate my claim. I felt confident going into the meeting with Trina. I'm sure she felt the same. We were to meet on my turf, or rather my lawyers. They were with me, but they all had been convinced over the last 60 days that I was a lunatic. I'm not too sure that I'm not, but I had something to prove, at least to myself. It was my meeting, I set the terms and the time. I was sitting at the head of the table with my legal team around me, ready to slay the dragon. Trina's lawyers entered first, followed by her parents, and finally her. She was obviously pregnant. That fact wasn't wasted on me. It only served to strengthen my resolve, and reaffirm what a conniving my soon-to-be ex-wife was. One of Trina's lawyers got the ball rolling. We have here what we feel is a very generous offer if you will postpone the divorce proceedings that we are here to discuss. I got up and headed for the door. It had been agreed that this was a meeting between Trina and I. There was no way that I would listen to any voice on the other end of that table, except hers. Instructions were very specific on this point. As I left the building, my attorneys gave them all the rules for the next meeting. The one difference then, the man that spoke and had broken the tenet was not invited back. The delay didn't really mean anything, we'd all expected it. Still, the arrogance pissed me off. I had a good feeling that things would go smoother as we took our positions at the table. Trina's team entered as before with one exception. Good, they were paying attention now. Maybe we could get this mess out on the table and done with. Trina started this time. Dan, I hope you'll reconsider leaving me. As you can see, we're going to have a baby. Nice try, Trina. What else you got? Well, if you're still determined to go ahead with the divorce, I'm prepared to make you an offer if you will postpone it for a while. You mean about 16 months? I see you understand the seriousness of the situation. Or rather I am willing to offer $3 million for each year of our marriage. That would be 14 years at the time of separation. Nah, I had something different in mind, more like 50-50. You can't be serious. Okay, have it your way, 60-40. There's no way. Alright, final offer, 80-20, take it or leave it. I might be willing to give you 20. No sweetheart, 80 for me and 20 for you, I said with a straight face. Trina was about to start frothing at the mouth now. You moron, have it your way. Get your divorce, my lawyers will tie you up in court so long that it won't make any difference. I tried to be nice about it. Now you'll get nothing, she hissed at me. Nah, I don't want a divorce, this is even better, I said as I slid the annulment across the table. That says we were never married. Her other lawyer stood, he was red in the face. You can't pull this crap. I already have, with the help of Trina and her journals. Does the word fraud mean anything to you? It meant a lot to the judge that granted the annulment. Everyone looked at Trina as she sunk down in her chair. I wonder how many of you have ever seen a person lose $459 million in the blink of an eye. Most of you would think it a very sad sight, but to a moron, it was sweet. You want to know the best part? No, it wasn't the money. Hell, I would end up with next to nothing after taxes and attorney fees anyway. What made it all worthwhile was, I didn't have to pine over what once was. It didn't ever exist. I was now free of my wedding vows. The marriage had never occurred in the eyes of the law. By the way, does anyone have Donna's phone number handy? I'd like to give her a buzz. What do you think about this story? And let's discuss it in the comments.